Yo, what's good with you? Back in black with another Enlisted video. If you guys are new to the channel and you love shooting games just like me, make sure you aim for that like button and shoot that subscribe button as well. It'll help you find better teammates and improve your skill-based matchmaking. At least I hope so. In this video, we're going to be talking about the best BR2 machine gun for the Japanese faction in Enlisted. And I guess to be more precise, we only have two contenders in the competition today, which is going to be the Type 11 LMG and the Type 97 LMG. And speaking of accuracy, I suppose we shall start talking about the Type 97 first, as this is the only machine gun in the game that has an optical sight on it, already making it a unique standout in comparison to any other LMG you can get your hands on. The description reads that this is a 7.7mm chambered weapon designed with a detachable box magazine and of course the previously mentioned optical scope. And for once, I'm actually quite satisfied with their explanation, because they actually go out of their way to mention that if you take a close look at the weapon's silhouette, you'll notice that it looks eerily similar to Germany's ZB-26 machine gun, and that's because it is essentially the same gun. But this Japanese version of the weapon was more adapted for tank use, if we're going off a historical context. Getting into the numbers, we are getting a maximum damage of 12 flat, which is pretty standard for machine guns and highest in the tier. Out to 100 meters, that'll drop down to 10.8 per shot, so most of your bullets should be one-hit kills or downs, unless you are hitting them in the extremities like the arms and the legs. Aside from that, the bullet velocity on the Type 97 is the lowest in the tier at 710 meters per second, and not only is that the lowest in the tier, it's also on the lower side generally speaking for BR2 LMGs, so you will have to do a decent bit of leading with your shots if you plan on making good use of the scope at longer ranges. In terms of how fast you'll be putting those bullets down range, you'll be shooting at 550 rounds per minute, which is indeed the fastest fire rate out of the two, but not by a huge margin. Another stat that is boosting the Type 97's case to be your preference is going to be the reload speed, clocking in at 2.8 seconds, which is blazing fast for an LMG, and that stat can be attributed to the 20 round box magazine, which would be a good time to mention that 20 bullets on any automatic weapon isn't going to be a lot to work with, especially when you consider the main purpose of LMGs in general. But neither here nor there, something else that may compel you towards the Type 97 is going to be the best in tier shot deviation at 31, which will help you keep more of those bullets grouped tightly during automatic fire in comparison to the competitor, which we'll talk about momentarily. But aside from that, I'd also like to take a look at the Type 97's recoil, which is going to be coming in at a vertical stat of 37 and a horizontal stat of 17. If you look at it from a vertical perspective, this is obviously going to be the worst in the tier, yet ever so ironically, if you look at it from a horizontal perspective, this is actually going to be the best in the tier. Without human intervention, the pattern will mostly snake upwards and to the right ever so slightly, so I highly recommend pulling down and diagonally to the left ever so slightly while shooting in burst. You should be able to nail most of your shots, and the accuracy is profound if you go prone or mount up, of course, plus using the scope, which again just makes you even more accurate than you would be otherwise with any other machine gun. The last stats related thing that I wanted to mention for the Type 97 before I go completely subjective is going to be the weight of the weapon, which directly affects the stamina drain and how quick that is, also how steady the weapon is when you're actually aiming, which I would consider that to be one of the most important things to consider on an LMG, since this is the most unwieldy weapon type by nature, unless you're going prone or mounted up like I mentioned earlier, which again I would highly recommend doing that whenever you get a chance. But neither here nor there, the Type 97 is weighing in at 12.4 kilograms, which is going to be the worst out of the two. So by that logic, this shows that this weapon is more so acclimated to the stationary minded player, or the guy who is playing on a defensive teamer, like finding high ground or something of that nature, in comparison to any other LMG or somebody who is on the attacking team instead. But with the stats concluded, something else that I did want to mention about the Type 97, or the last thing I wanted to mention I should say, is that despite the scoped aim, this weapon is just as versatile at close range than it can be at medium or long range despite the zoom. And the reason that is basically thanks to the alternate aiming, which will bring you to the other side of the weapon, giving you a pretty clean iron sight that you can use for those targets that actually try to run up on you or pop around the corner, or basically from any angle that is unexpected. So that is something that I wanted to mention in case there was a group or a contingent of players out there not taking advantage of the alternate aiming mode that this gun has. Very multifaceted, and I don't think any other LMG has anything in the game that can, basically give it that type of versatility, whether you're using it at long range or close range or even medium range. But in regards to the reticle, when you're actually aiming, it's a non-connected tri-post sight, which in my personal opinion isn't my favorite reticle, but it is World War II, so beggars cannot be choosers, am I right? Coming up for our only other Japanese BR2 light machine gun of the day, we shall now take a look at the Type 11 LMG, which is an even funkier looking weapon design if I'm being quite frank with you guys. Looking at the description, this one is actually chambered in the smaller 6.5mm Arisaka cartridge and is fed from an ammo hopper which can hold up to 6 5-round stripper clips equaling up to 30 bullets per reload instead of the previously mentioned Type 97 with the 20-round box magazine, so you can see the advantage there. But the description does have me getting a bit ahead of myself, so keeping in line with my normal progression through the stats, the smaller cartridge does unfortunately give us a lower damage at a maximum of 11.2, and out to 100 meters you'll be chipping them down for 10.1 per shot, which is still good enough to one hit down somebody or put them into a crawling state, maybe even kill them. But it is even more important to hit center mass or aim for the head, and of course with the lower damage means we get a lower range slightly as well on top of that. But on the bright side, not only are we getting more bullets per reload than the Type 97, we're also getting a better bullet velocity at 730 meters per second, so that's highest in the tier, but it is only higher by 20 points. So it is kind of hard to say if that's something that I can necessarily notice, especially on the weapon that doesn't have the scope instead of the one that does, which is a little weird to me if I'm being completely honest. To my dismay, the rate of fire on the Type 11 is going to be 50 stat points lower at 500 rounds per minute, which could be a good or a bad thing depending on the person, or essentially it could end up being a non-factor. But what I derive from that information and my feelings is that I wish the roles between these two were reversed, because with the Type 97, since it has 20 bullets, I would actually prefer the lower rate of fire so I don't eat through those 20 bullets so fast in comparison to the 30 bullets on the Type 11, which is nice that it doesn't feel like they instantly get vaporized the second I pull the trigger, but it is something that can get you killed when there's a mass of people in front of you and you want to mow them down as fast as possible. Another reason you ought to make sure you kill all the immediate threats in front of you as well is because we're getting a tier worse reload speed at 3.8 seconds, which is absurdly slow for a weapon that has such a small mag size, and for that reason I highly encourage alternate reloading if you get the chance to do so, along with added bonuses of perking out your soldier and upgrading the gun generally speaking. Recoil on the Type 11 comes out to a vertical stat of 36 and a horizontal stat of 24, which I'm sure most of you guys can infer that the Type 11 is better in the vertical category by only 1 point, while it is losing by a whole 7 points in the horizontal category, which is generally speaking a lot harder to control than vertical recoil. But anyways, the recoil on the Type 11 is a little more all over the place, but generally speaking, the pattern that I've noticed is decent climbing upward with a moderate amount of zigzagging on the horizontal side. So whether it goes left or right is really up to chance, but I highly recommend focusing on pulling down just to keep that mass of bullets at least in somewhat of a tight grouping, and you kind of just do what you can for the horizontal recoil. Last but not least, more so on the subjective side, in regard to the iron sights on the Type 11, I gotta say these are pretty bad. I don't know if I would say it's like top 5 worst in the game, but it is definitely top 10 or top 15. And the reason is because even though it's not necessarily a top loaded magazine, it still gives you the same vibes. Basically, whenever you aim, half your screen is obstructed. So I highly recommend identifying whatever you want to shoot at, or all of the targets that you want to shoot at, before moving into aiming mode, because when you do aim, periphery vision is basically non-existent with this thing. So that is my 2 cents on that. Overall though, there's only two options in this tier, so it makes it pretty easy for me to clearly define the pros and the cons of each weapon, and then from there you can easily decide how you want to spend your silver. But the only con that really presents itself with the Type 97 is going to be the simple fact that it doesn't have a 30 round magazine, and I would even go as far as to argue that, you know, the 10 less bullets can easily be negated by the reload speed, which is already a whole second faster and can make a big difference in combat. The bullet velocity is lower, but it's only by 20 points, and I doubt that you will really be able to feel that in game because I could barely notice it, and you don't even have a scope on the other LMG to take advantage of that extra velocity. So, you know, if we're just being real, that's another thing that plays into it. And the same theme of barely being able to notice the difference in game applies to the rate of fire. And the last major component of the damage being higher on the Type 97 really solidifies which one is better in my personal opinion, and what I would recommend outfitting all your Japanese machine gunners with. But anyways, that's just my personal opinion. At the end of the day, I am more so curious to know what you guys are thinking down there in the comments section. If you had to choose one of these guns between the Type 97 and the Type 11 to give to all your Japanese machine gunners if you're playing in BR2, which would you choose, or is it kind of just hard for you to decide and you end up carrying both? As a little sidebar before I end the video, I did want to mention to you guys that I was highly considering putting the BR3 Japanese machine guns in this video as well, considering the fact that BR3 Japan can't up tier in the BR4, they can only go downward, but I don't know if that's always going to be the case. The other thing that I was considering is that I'm trying to make these videos a bit shorter so they're more digestible to the general population and the shortened attention spans nowadays. But let me know what you guys think about that down in the comment section, if I should have put the BR3 machine guns in this video or, you know, keep it separate. And yeah, other than that, appreciate you guys very much for watching. Don't forget to aim for that like button, shoot that subscribe button as well. Hope you find better teammates, improve your skill based matchmaking, and yeah, hope you have a lovely rest of your day. Black guy out.